So I guess good evening. My name is Roberto Rodriguez. I am serving as chair of the Presumpscot Building Level Advisory Committee, or as co-chair, along with Councillor Pius Ali. We're excited to be here at this point in the timeline of the renovations. This community forum, it's going to include a presentation by, or rather led by Mark Lee from Harriman, including some really exciting timeline information that is going to make it feel like things are just about to start happening. I mean, things are literally around the corner. So it's an exciting time. So after his presentation, we'll have an opportunity for questions to be asked. We will be able to do that by using the Zoom feature with the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. And then you could also raise your hand. You're also using the Zoom feature, and we can bring you over so that you can speak, and we'll address your questions. I'm actually, I should apologize right from the jump. I'm speaking really fast. We have interpreters for this Zoom meeting. And in a moment, I'm going to hand it off to Maureen so that she can go over how to access that feature. But I noticed the faces. So again, yeah, a very exciting opportunity, this community forum. And I was around earlier today for the other two schools. And just fascinated again by the amount of work that has gone into this, and again how quickly these projects are approaching. I'll hand it right off to Mark for his presentation. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Roberto, and welcome everyone to our third public forum on the renovation project for Presumpscot Elementary School. We're delighted that you're joining with us. The material we're going to cover begins with a review of a design statement that we made when we met nearly a year ago, when we could meet in person at the Presumpscot School. We will then look at a listing of the prioritized facility needs, the issues to be addressed as part of the renovation. We will look at floor plan diagrams that show how we are addressing those facility needs, and we'll share a rendering of the entrance addition. We'll also bring you up to speed on improvements to the schools in response to the COVID-19 virus, and what is being done and what is planned to be done as part of the renovation. We'll look at the LEED rating system, which stands for Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design. It's a sustainability requirement as part of the City of Portland ordinance. And so we'll show you how we're achieving that. We'll look at the project timeline, where we have been in the schedule, where we are now, and where we're going. And then, as Roberto said, we will leave plenty of time for question and answers. And so if you want, as we're going through the presentation, to ask a question, please feel free to enter it into the question and answer feature as part of Zoom. So one of the first things we did as a community was to examine what qualities make Presumpscot a truly unique community, and we explored that through words and images, and then we came up with a design statement that is intended to guide us as we design these renovations. So the words that really embodied the spirit of Presumpscot were community, collaboration, and welcoming. And there are a series of images you see here that were exemplary of those aspects in schools that we examined. And together we built a design statement that reads, a welcoming, diverse family creating safe spaces for learners to collaborate, grow, and explore. And that really is intended to embody that spirit that is unique about Presumpscot. And you can see in the images on the right, the fun we had back on November 13th of last year. The needs at Presumpscot include the replacement of 3 modular classroom structures, and those are shown on the image on the right. And so for safety reasons, as well as to create a permanent and healthy classroom environment, we are replacing the portable classroom environments with permanent classrooms. As with all the other schools that we're undertaking, and as part of best practices in school design, we are creating secure entrances to the schools. And so that it not only needs to be secure, but a very welcoming entrance for visitors and staff and students alike. We also are going to create separate spaces for the gym and for the cafeteria. Right now, the space functions for both, and it takes a lot of time and effort to convert from a cafeteria where we're serving food to use as a recreation and athletic space. We also are creating separate music and art rooms. Currently at Presumpscot, art and music share the same room. We're also going to create rooms for specialists for several services. Right now, several of these specialists share a single room, and there are issues with acoustics and confidentiality that we will address by creating separate rooms. And finally, codes and accessibility standards have increased or changed since the building was constructed. And we're going to address a number of those through the renovations. And those are such things as sprinkler systems, fire alarm system upgrades, and accessible access to all public amenities in a building, whether it's approaches into spaces or toilet room fixtures and clearances. For this next portion, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Lisa Sawin, who will review the floor plan that's proposed and the rendering.
Good evening, and thank you, Mark. As Mark said, my name is Lisa Sawin, and I'm going to walk you through the floor plans for Presumpscot and the related renderings. The Presumpscot project looked at the criteria that we identified as the high priorities and the design statement, and looking at creating that welcoming environment. We looked at addressing the front entry, adding on an administrative complement of spaces in the green area. In the front, you see the administration addition and secure vestibule entry here. That addresses the second criteria that we outlined of secure and welcoming entrance. The spaces to the right are the administrative reception, principal office, conference room, and the nurses area. When we add that area, we look at renovating the lobby. So continuing that welcoming entrance from the outside all the way into the existing building. We've also created areas for different specialists throughout the school. Some of them are in this area, and some of them are in the back addition, as well as other spaces that we've renovated in the school. The other major addition is in the back of the building. This is where the existing portable classrooms exist. And this addition looks to create permanent classrooms, 4 of them, 1 for pre-K and 3 for kindergarten. It also addresses the need that was identified to provide a separate art and music space. Those can be found in this area of the addition. The addition also addresses the need for separate cafeteria and gymnasium by adding the cafeteria and warming kitchen to this addition. We also have addressed renovations, heavy renovations in the blue areas for a workroom, staff toilets, as well as public restrooms and the ADA upgrades to the student restrooms. The other areas in the building will receive code upgrades to address the specific code needs of the project. On the next slide, you will see a rendering of what the front entrance of the new Presumpscot school will look like, creating a unique identity that emphasizes the welcoming aspects that the community wanted to portray of their new school. To the left, you can see the existing building, and where there is the darker brick is where the addition starts. And enhancements to the landscape and access around the parking area to create spaces for children to wait safely for parent and bus pickup and drop off.
Thank you, Lisa. The next area that we'll look at are the improvements to the school in response to COVID. Currently, there are several initiatives that Portland Public Schools is already instituting to address aspects of the environment. Those include creating or installing air exchange units in existing nurse areas and separation rooms. The exchange units contain an ultraviolet light that disinfects the air, and so as the air circulates through the unit, it sanitizes the air in that space. Also looking at any repairs necessary for operable windows in each of the classrooms, so that all classrooms have the ability to open a window to get fresh air. The schools are also getting hand sanitizing stations throughout the school in several areas. There's also been a lot of efforts to clean and service existing ventilation systems to improve the amount of fresh air and quality of fresh air coming into the buildings. And those also include ionizers that, similar to what the UV units do, they help to disinfect the air as it comes into the building. As part of the renovations, we'll continue to make improvements to address COVID, and those include the reconfiguration of the nurses area that was part of that administration addition in the front of the building. And that nurses area will include that separation or isolation room as part of it. The other things that will be done where we're upgrading and renovating bathrooms to comply with plumbing counts and accessibility requirements, we'll use touchless fixtures in those toilet rooms. As we spoke earlier, the project is required to meet LEED Silver, and we are working with Thornton Tomasetti, a consulting firm, to help us evaluate the different ways that we can build sustainable features into the design of the school. And there are several categories that we are using to address this. Those major categories deal with the location of the school and its connection to adjacent services. It also looks at the site development and making sure that we're developing the areas that we're impacting according to best practices for sustainable site design. Another major category is water efficiency and using low consumption water fixtures. The biggest area that allows us to get credits in the LEED rating system for schools is the energy and atmosphere category. And this deals with how efficiently we heat and cool the building, as well as providing a comfortable environment. So it's really how energy efficient the building is. Materials and resources is a category that considers the sustainability of the materials we're using in the renovation project. Indoor environmental quality is the last major category, and that measures how the indoor environment has fresh air and also other aspects of indoor environment, such as natural daylight and views to the outdoors. And so we're on target to meet that silver rating and are delighted that that's part of this renovation project. And reviewing the schedule, our planning began a little before we all met for the first time last November. And that consisted of valuation of the building systems and starting to understand the different needs of the school and the educational needs of the programs. And then as we evolved that into a statement of needs and balanced with the available funds, we then started to create the design that we presented tonight. And we shared that in the spring with everyone, the preliminary concept ideas that we had. Since then, we've been working on what we call construction documents, and those are the plans that we get ready to deliver to contractors to price the project. That process is known as bidding, and as Roberto said at the beginning, we're very excited to be at this phase of the project now. So what has seemed like and has been many, many years getting to this point, we're now very close to putting this out to a contractor pricing. Those prices we'll receive in the winter, and then construction will begin in the spring. We anticipate that the construction will start in the spring of 2021, and that construction will last approximately 16 or so months, and so just over a year. And then in the fall of 2022, the renovations will be complete for that start of that school year. We're now at the point where if folks have questions, we would love to entertain any of them. And so, as Roberto and others have said, you can type them in, or if you raise your hand, we can call on you that way as well. So the first question, can you share any information about how passage of referendum question C would affect the cost of the project or force further reduction of the scope? And so this is a question that we're analyzing carefully. The initiative on the ballot will change the building ordinance and require some different things than are required now in the design of the project. One of those is that there's a, sometimes referred to as a stretch energy code that requires adherence to stricter energy performance than the current code requires. And that would require that we make more investment in the thermal performance of the building, as well as some of the equipment that we use to ventilate and heat the building. Those things would take some money away from other improvements that we have planned for the building. Our strategy at the beginning of this project was to address those educational program needs as a priority, and where we could create more efficiencies in the building and its systems. So passage of question C, we think, would impact us in that we would have to develop some changes to address the energy performance of the building. We are also looking carefully at the timing of the passage, should it pass, and what that means in terms of compliance with the new requirements. And so that is actively being reviewed, and we hope to be able to share more information about that moving forward. We have a quiet group, Roberto. I think it's maybe the late hour.
Potentially. Maybe it's a good idea to remind folks that they can use the raise your hand feature, and that it's found in the participants window, excuse me, at the bottom of the screen. And when you hit the participants button, you'll see on the window the raise your hand feature, or using the Q&A box. But yeah, a quieter group than earlier.
Another question, will the roof be able to support solar or roof garden? So the second component that the question C would require is that a percentage of the roof has to be able to support solar panels or improved or devices on it, or comply with a Better Roofs program or a garden roof. And the existing roof was not designed at the time to even support what we know are code requirements for dead and live loads now. But because Presumpscot has a fairly significant addition on it with the classrooms and the cafeteria, that those were designed to be able to support the weight of solar equipment or a roof garden should that be desired. And so we are able to comply with that requirement should question C pass.
Mark, one question that came up on the Reiki forum, and I'm honestly not sure if it applies here, was, are any trees that are in place going to be impacted, or are we going to be able to preserve all of the trees that are in the area? I don't know if that applies here.
Sure. Yes, Roberto, thank you. And so one of the challenges with the Presumpscot site is that it has a fairly constrained area that we can expand the building. And so we're trying to preserve a number of features on the site with the addition. One area that we're trying to preserve is the play areas, both the hardscape or paved play areas, as well as the grassy areas and playgrounds. And so when we take those and preserve as many of those as we can, our addition starts to encroach somewhat on the northwest corner of the site towards the cemetery. And we think we are going to lose a few trees in that area with the addition. So that will impact some of smaller. They're I think the size are about a 3 or 4 inch caliper tree. They're not that old of a tree. So, but we'll look to see if we can replace with additional trees. There's another question. Is this the final public forum about these projects? Correct? And so we currently do not have another public forum planned for these projects. What we have been telling everyone is that there is a website devoted to these projects, and you can find it by going to the Portland Public Schools website, where there is a link. If you want, you can also find it directly by going to ppsbfofprojects.com. And at that website, you'll find all of the presentations that we have made throughout the entire design process for the project. You'll find the meeting minutes. You'll find upcoming meeting notices. And so you can stay informed about it at that website. There's also a link to an email. Should you have any questions that you can click on it and it'll send an email to us with your question, and we can address it in responding to you that way.
Probably a good, before we get to the next one, just to add, because I know in the other meetings we did as well, the school board email, if there's questions that you want to address to the school board, I'm going to go ahead and type in to the chat the group email address. And if anyone ever wants to send a question or concern directly to the school board, they can use that as well. So I'll plug that in a moment. And there's another Q&A question.
So the next question is, how will construction impact the delivery of classes during the construction time? It's an excellent question. So because as Lisa mentioned, the portables are in the location where the building addition in the rear of the school is going to go, we will need to relocate those portables, and they will move to an area of the recreation field behind the school. And so they will still be in use during the construction, and they'll be used largely in the same way they are now. Because most of the spaces that we're renovating in the building were not doing a lot of work to existing classrooms, the renovation for most classroom areas will happen in the summer when the building's not occupied. So of all the 3 schools being constructed, Presumpscot is the one that's probably impacted the least, in that most classrooms will function during construction like they always have, and the area of the additions will be separated from the remaining school so that there's no worry or concern about the students coming into construction areas or construction impacting the school area. Are the reconfiguring of the nurses' stations to accommodate for isolation and the bathroom upgrades to the touchless fixtures because of COVID, or were they part of the plan all along? So the nurses' area and the bathroom upgrades were always part of the plan to improve them, but specific aspects of those areas were refined to address the aspects of COVID. And so anyone who has been in the existing nurses area, it's a fairly small location and it doesn't have a separate room for examination and so, or isolation. And so that is a new feature of the new admin addition to the school. We'll give a few more minutes if folks want to weigh in on a question, but we also, again, appreciate everyone making the time tonight. What we've done on these remote forums is rotate the time slots. And so, again, we appreciate everyone staying with us at this hour to become informed about this renovation addition project.
Thank you, Mark. Yeah, I'll just piggyback on that and thank everyone for joining us. We obviously can wait a couple of more minutes if anything else comes up. But just wanted to ask, this is being recorded. Grace, when we post it, because this has been one continuous Zoom, when we post it, we'll be able to break it up by the 3 different schools. And it'll be uploaded to our, I'm assuming it'll be part of the website, resources, and our YouTube channel. So,
yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
Perfect. Great. So, if we don't have any other questions or any other raised hands, again, thank you again. A very exciting point in the process of the renovations. Not just for the Presumpscot school, for all 3 of them, all 4 of them actually, but certainly these 3 having the community forums tonight is a really special time. A lot to be proud of in terms of the work and the inclusiveness of the community, and of course a fast approaching timeline to break ground. So thank you, Mark and Lisa, for your presentation, and everyone in the community for joining us tonight at a late evening. Have a good night, and I'll see most of you guys tomorrow night.